I could elaborate extensively on the numerous shortcomings presented in the new season of The House of the Dragon. The transformation of a fantasy medieval fiction into a silly, empowering soap opera full of fillers and no depth into its characters. No character ever behaves according to their own established persona. Rhaenyra isn't like Rhaenyra, Alicent isn't like Alicent, and Daemon, let's just say...
Look how they massacred my boy.
However, I'm not here to criticize the new season of The House of the Dragon. I may do that in a future video, but right now I want to praise it, or at least a concept of it. Let me explain what I'm saying first.
Let's talk of graves, of worms, and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills, and yet not so. For what can we bequeath, save our deposed bodies to the ground? Our lands, our lives, and all, our Bolingbrooks.
I recently watched the show Hollow Crown. I especially enjoyed the first episode. I really just watched the first episode. It was too boring and intellectual for me. Which is based on a play written by Shakespeare in 1595 titled Richard II. There is something about this play that amazes me, particularly the concept of existence of divine rule, or the lack of it. In a simplified version of the story, there's this guy named Richard. He is king. He is quite eccentric, having grown up believing that the idea of a divine right of kings, which is a belief held during the medieval times or the feudal era, basically means the royal family was chosen by God to rule over men. This notion might sound absurd today. Imagine if we had the same idea about our modern day politicians.
Donald Trump, if you can hear us, please, Donald Trump, please save me. Please save me, Donald Trump.
This entrenched belief ensured that there will be little challenge to the ruling class, the monarchy, and its suppressed rebellion and dissent. Richard in this story fully embraced this belief. He believed he was divinely chosen to rule over men, and there is no army or power on earth that could challenge his authority. In one scene, he is even commanding the earth itself. He's pointing at the ground and saying something like, "Don't bring food to my enemies," or some stupid shit like that. In his mind, earth is part of his subjects. Like, he's the king of England. He's not the king of English people. He's the king of all of England, the island itself, the dirt. Until his cousin usurps him and becomes king. That's the whole story. But there's more depth into it. Shakespeare portrays this entire situation as a great tragedy. It's not because Richard was such a cool guy that people got sad when he was gone, but rather because it marked the first time in English history that both the people and the kings realized that perhaps kings are not chosen by God after all. Maybe this whole monarchy system is constructed by the hand of mortal men, and the king is essentially just a peasant in fine clothes and jewelry. That was the whole play in a nutshell, but does it sound familiar to you? No? Well, it didn't to me either until one night when I was high as fuck and I was watching The House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 5. The episode that they bring the dragon's corpse into the city. That's when I saw this scene.
I thought the dragons was gods.
Just me.
In case you didn't understand why people were unhappy to see the enemy's dragon slain, it is the same tragedy in the Richard II, the one that Shakespeare discussed. Some YouTubers explained the scene by suggesting that people feared Rhaenyra would retaliate or something, which is true as one dialogue explicitly says this.
Rhaenyra will answer this.
However, in my opinion, there's something deeper than the fear of retaliation. Until that day, people have never seen a dragon dead. Dragons have never been slain in front of them. They simply died of old age, like Balerion the Black Dread, basically Aegon the Conqueror's dragon, which was the biggest dragon or something, I don't know. Well, there was one dragon that was struck down by a scorpion in Dorne. I don't remember his name, but I'm referring to the people of King's Landing, the people who lived under the shadow of dragons, the residents that basically saw dragons as gods. They viewed the Targaryen as the most legitimate monarchy to rule, distinguished by their unique hair and eyes, and most importantly, their dragons. I mean, would you feel differently? Imagine if you're a medieval peasant and an albino sister fucker comes on top of a fucking dragon, claims to be chosen by God to rule over you. Would you really have any objection to that claim? Like, look at this motherfucker. Well, until that day. People realize that the dragon is not a god. The Targaryens aren't as divine as they once claimed to be. This revelation is both frightening and infuriating. When you think about it, it's frightening because your entire belief system regarding the monarchy, divinity, dragons collapses. It's all gone now. And it's infuriating because, well, let's not spoil anything for the show watchers only, but people were upset, people were angry, they were pissed at the Targaryens, at the civil war, at how many people were getting killed, at Daemon and his bullshit, Aemond and his bullshit, Rhaenyra and his bullshit, basically everyone. They were like, can we just have fucking peace right now? Like, this family fight is going out of hand. And they decided that it's the dragons' fault, because if it wasn't for the dragons, these Targaryens wouldn't be able to do whatever they like. It's basically a cheat code. They can walk over all the people. And they were unholy as well. Like, there was this whole crusade thing against the dragons back in the days, where they were saying, like, Targaryens, yeah, they fucked their own sister, this is unholy, against the Seven or some shit. And Maegor the Cruel basically crushed their religion into pieces. So yet again, they win because of the dragons. But now people were fed up with dragons, and they realized, yeah, this whole thing is a scam. Dragons can be killed. They're a fucking dinosaur. They're not some god or some shit. So they decided to band up and do something very important in the history of Westeros, which I'm not gonna spoil. They killed the dragons. People riot and kill the dragons. Fuck not spoiling it, I'm spoiling everything.